The ballroom lights dimmed to a warm gold, and every head turned toward the dance floor where the bride and groom were supposed to take their first spin. Instead, a little girl in a fluffy lavender dress tugged at a man's sleeve. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing the only suit he owned, slightly shiny at the knees from too many parent-teacher nights. His name was Hamza, and he had no business being the center of attention. He was just the plus one tagged onto his sister's invitation, the single dad who fixed motorcycles for a living and whose daughter, Ayesha, had begged to see a real princess wedding. Then the music swelled, a slow violin crying over the chatter, and the CEO of the bride's company, Miss Sana Khan, stepped out of the crowd in a midnight blue gown that caught every shard of light. She was the woman who closed nine-figure deals before breakfast, whose signature could launch product lines or end careers. Cameras loved her, boardrooms feared her. Yet right then her eyes were locked on the little girl spinning in circles and on the father trying to keep her from crashing into the cake table. Sana crossed the floor like she owned gravity itself. She crouched, the hem of her gown pooling like ink. "May I steal your partner for one dance?" she asked Ayesha. The child's grin could have powered the chandeliers. Hamza opened his mouth, probably to mumble an apology and retreat, but Sana was already extending her hand to him, palm up, steady as a promise. "Dance with me," she said, soft enough that only he heard the tremor beneath the command. And just like that, the room exhaled. Phones rose, someone hit record. If you're watching this, smash that like button now, because what happened next changed 3 lives forever, and it started with one impossible dance. Hamza's hand was calloused, smelling faintly of engine grease he could never fully scrub away. Sana's was cool, manicured, the hand that signed paychecks for half the city. Their fingers met, and the violin seemed to hesitate, as if the song itself needed permission to continue. He counted under his breath 1, 2, 3, terrified of stepping on a $1,000 dress. Ayesha clapped from the sidelines, shouting, "Go Baba," and the guests laughed, the kind of laugh that loosens knots in the chest. Sana leaned in just enough for him to catch the scent of jasmine in her hair. "You're doing fine," she whispered, breathes. "I haven't danced since," he stopped. Since his wife's funeral, he didn't say. 4 years of bedtime stories, packed lunches, and midnight fevers had rusted every graceful thing inside him. Sana's thumb brushed the inside of his wrist, a tiny motion no camera caught. "Then let's make it count." The song stretched, and so did the moment. Around them, couples joined, but the floor still felt like it belonged only to the mechanic and the mogul. When the final note landed, polite applause rippled, then Ayesha launched herself at their legs, hugging them both. Sana laughed, startled, and for the first time all evening the sound wasn't polished. It was real, cracked open. Hamza expected her to glide back to the VIP table. Instead, she asked Ayesha, "Do you like chocolate fountains?" and led them both toward the dessert station like they were old friends. That should have been the end of it, a sweet anecdote for the wedding hashtag. But the next morning, Hamza's phone buzzed with a calendar invite. Coffee, 10 a.m., Bluebird Cafe. Sender, S. Khan. He almost deleted it, convinced it was a glitch. Single dads didn't get coffee with CEOs. They got oil changes and parent portals and the same 4 dinosaur nuggets on repeat. But Ayesha saw the name and gasped, "The princess wants to see us again." So he showered twice, ironed the same suit, and prayed the motorcycle wouldn't backfire in the cafe parking lot. Sana was already there, no gown this time, just jeans and a cream sweater, hair in a messy knot. She stood when they entered, and the barista did a double take. "I owe you an apology," she said after Ayesha was settled with a hot chocolate mountain of whipped cream. "Last night I hijacked your daughter's joy for my own curiosity. That wasn't fair." Hamza frowned. "You gave her the best night of her life. Apology not accepted because there's nothing to forgive." Sana's smile flickered, something vulnerable beneath it. "Still, let me make it up properly. There's a father-daughter STEM fair at my company next Saturday, Ayesha's age group. I can get you in." He wanted to say no, too busy, too broke, too everything, but Ayesha's eyes were saucers. Robots, Baba, real robots. So they went. The fair was held in a glass-walled atrium that looked like the future had landed and decided to stay. Kids in matching t-shirts swarmed tables of circuit boards and 3D printers. Hamza hovered, feeling every grease stain on his soul, while Ayesha fearlessly soldered her first lead under the guidance of an engineer who called her ma'am. Sana found them near the drone cage. She wore a company hoodie now, sleeves pushed up, no trace of the ballroom goddess. "She's a natural," she told Hamza, fearless. "Runs in the family," he said, then winced. His family was just him and a 6-year-old who still slept with a nightlight shaped like a rocket. Sana studied him. "You built her that rocket nightlight, didn't you?" He nodded, surprised she'd noticed it in the 3 seconds she'd been inside their apartment to pick up Ayesha's forgotten jacket. "I used to build things too," Sana said. "Before Boardrooms, my father owned a corner electronics shop in Lahore. I was 9, rewiring radios for pocket money." Her voice softened. He died when I was 12, the shop got sold. I promised myself I'd build something bigger than grief. Hamza heard the echo of his own promise, whispered over a hospital bed 4 years ago. I'll be enough for her, I swear. A drone buzzed overhead, nearly clipping a banner. Sana caught it midair with reflexes that belonged on a cricket pitch. The crowd of kids cheered. Ayesha tugged Hamza's sleeve. Baba, can Ms. Sana come to career day? She's cooler than firefighters. He'd crawled up his neck, Ayesha. But Sana was already kneeling. I'd love to if your dad says it's okay. He should have said no. CEOs didn't belong in elementary school cafeterias. But the word that came out was sure. Career day arrived with construction paper posters and juice boxes. Sana showed up in a pantsuit sharp enough to cut glass, yet she sat cross-legged on the rug while 21st graders quizzed her about robots and whether princesses could code. Ayesha beamed from the front row, wearing the LED badge they'd made together. Afterward, in the hallway lined with finger-painted suns, Sana handed Hamza a small box. Inside was a tiny circuit board etched with a rocket. Press the button, she said. He did. The rocket lit up, projecting tiny stars onto the wall. Ayesha squealed. I have a confession, Sana said quietly. I've been monopolizing your daughter's hero. That's not fair to you. Hamza's laugh was rough. She has plenty of heroes. I'm just the guy who packs her lunch. You're the guy who taught her please and thank you in 3 languages, who stayed up rewiring a nightlight so she wouldn't be afraid of the dark. Don't sell that short. He looked at her then, really looked, and saw the faint shadows under her eyes, the way her fingers worried the cuff of her sleeve. The invincible CEO was nervous. Sana, he said, trying her name for the first time, why are you doing this? She exhaled, because for the first time in years, I remembered what it feels like to want something that isn't on a balance sheet. The hallway smelled like paste and crayons. Somewhere a child was crying over spilled glitter. None of it felt small. That night, Hamza tucked Ayesha in and found her clutching the star projector. Baba, is Ms. Sana lonely? The question punched the air from his lungs. Why do you say that? She smiles like you do when you think I'm asleep, like it hurts a little. He kissed her forehead and promised himself he'd figure it out without dragging a 6-year-old into grown-up mess. But the mess found them anyway. 2 weeks later, Sana's company announced a massive layoff to fund an AI pivot. The news lit up every screen in the city. Protests formed outside the glass atrium. Hashtags multiplied. And suddenly the woman who'd sat on a classroom rug was public enemy number 1. Hamza watched the footage on the shop's tiny TV between oil changes. Sana's face was stone as microphones thrust toward her. He recognized the set of her shoulders, same as the night she'd caught the runaway drone. Armor. Ayesha didn't understand layoffs, but she understood sadness. She drew Sana a card, a stick-figure princess with a cape made of circuit boards, standing between a daddy and a little girl. On the inside, don't be sad, we love you. Hamza stared at the crayon masterpiece and felt the ground tilt. Love was a word they hadn't earned yet. But he drove to Sana's building anyway, Ayesha asleep in the back seat, card clutched in his fist. Security recognized him from the STEM fair and waved him up. The executive floor was eerily quiet, lights dimmed to emergency levels. Sana sat alone at the conference table, tie askew, surrounded by spreadsheets that looked like battle plans. She startled when the door opened. Hamza, you shouldn't. He placed the card in front of her, from your biggest fan. Sana's fingers trembled as she opened it. The tears came fast, silent, ruining 1,000-rupee mascara. I fired 200 people today, she whispered. Mothers, fathers, I keep telling myself it's numbers, strategy, survival of the company, but they had nightlights too. Hamza pulled out a chair. The table between them felt like a continent. You don't have to carry it alone. I don't know how to carry it with someone, she admitted. Everyone wants the CEO, not the girl who grew up soldering under a bare bulb. He reached across and tapped the card. That girl's still in there, and she's got friends now. Outside, thunder rolled over the city. Inside, something shifted. The next month was a masterclass in controlled chaos. Sana fought the board to rehire half the laid-off staff into a new skunkworks division, smaller salaries, equity upside, a bet on human ingenuity over algorithms. The press called it a PR stunt. Employees called it a lifeline. Hamza's role was unofficial. Midnight texts when the numbers wouldn't balance, early morning coffee runs when Sana forgot to eat, Ayesha's relentless optimism delivered in doodles and voice notes. He never asked for a title, but the security badge that appeared on his motorcycle one morning read, Consultant, Human Division. Then came the night everything almost broke. The skunkworks team had a breakthrough, a modular AI tutor that adapted to learning disabilities in real time. The demo was scheduled for investors in 48 hours, but the lead coder's wife went into premature labor. The backup quit over equity disputes. Sana stared at the empty chairs and felt the old panic rise. Build something bigger than grief. Don't fail. She called Hamza at 2 a.m. He answered on the first ring, voice gravelly from sleep. I'll be there in 20. He arrived with Ayesha in tow. She'd refused to stay with the neighbor, claiming Ms. Sana needs both of us. They found the office a war zone of pizza boxes and panic. Hamza rolled up his sleeves the same way he approached a seized engine, methodically without drama. He couldn't code, but he could read people. He paired the exhausted juniors with the grizzled veterans, turned the coffee machine into a hydration station, and told stories about rebuilding carburetors until the room laughed instead of cried. Ayesha fell asleep on a couch under Sana's coat. At 5 a.m. the demo worked. The AI tutor read a passage in Urdu, then simplified it for a dyslexic child, then generated practice questions in rhyme. The room erupted. Sana found Hamza in the hallway, watching dawn bleed pink across the skyline. I would have lost this without you. We, he corrected, without we. She stepped closer. I'm terrified of we, my whole life is solo missions. He brushed a strand of hair from her cheek, grease under his nails and all. Then let's be terrified together. Their first kiss tasted like burnt coffee and relief. Behind them, Ayesha stirred and mumbled, took you long enough. The investor demo was a triumph. Funding poured in. The AI tutor launched in public schools within the year. Sana's company stock soared, but the headlines that mattered were smaller. CEO mentors single dad's daughter in robotics. Laid-off workers return as co-owners. Hamza never moved into the glass tower. He kept the shop, expanded it into a training program for teenage apprentices, kids who reminded him of Sana at 12, soldering under bare bulbs. Ayesha split her time between grease-stained overalls and coding boot camps, fluent in both engines and Python. 1 year after the wedding, they returned to the same ballroom. This time Hamza wore a new suit, still shiny but for different reasons. Ayesha carried the rings on a pillow she'd sewn herself, circuits embroidered along the edges that lit up when she walked. Sana waited at the altar in ivory silk, no midnight blue, no armor. When the officiant asked who gave this woman, a dozen voices answered, former employees, apprentices, the barista from the Bluebird Cafe. Later, during their first dance, Ayesha cut in halfway through, standing on Hamza's shoes like she had at the wedding that started it all. The three of them swayed, a clumsy, perfect triangle. Sana rested her head on Hamza's shoulder. Remember when you were just a guest. He smiled against her hair, best +1 I ever brought. The violin cried again, but this time it sounded like joy.